Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on establishing a coaching program. Of course, we are delighted to have you here and very much look forward to hopefully providing some great information for you and also answering your questions. For those of you that do have questions, because of the number of people on the call, we will be keeping you on mute-only mode, and I apologize for that. I know some of you on the call, and I know you love coming live. So in that vein, if you have a question, if you would please type it into your question panel. We'll work very hard to answer those questions as we go. So our focus for today is establishing a coaching program. Many of you are working in a corporate or small business environment, and having a coach program makes sense for you. And so the idea here is to get some insight on how to do it and how to do it well. So a couple of things. First off, in terms of agenda, we're going to keep this super duper easy. We're going to talk who, when, where, and how. Pretty basic in terms of the coaching program. Well, and the reason for that, of course, being we've got just 30 minutes, so we want to jump into lots of information, be effective, and be succinct about it. I will hang around. I'll answer questions afterwards. Definitely make sure you get what you want out of this when you're starting a coaching program within your organization. So the first part, who? Well, when we talk about who, we're going to talk about who buys in to having a coaching program where you work. Next, who organizes and manages a coaching program within the workplace, who does the coaching, and who is coached. So let's answer the who question. First off, who's going to buy in? We've got to start with upper management. For some of you in a corporate setting, that's a ways up. For some of you in a smaller business or mid-sized business, it's a little bit easier. The key is the buy-in to a coaching program starts from the top. We want upper management buying in to having a coaching program. And we will get into how to get them to buy in. That's definitely coming because it's an essential piece to this. Next, middle management. So the trickle-down effect. We get upper management them individually, departments, their teams, and to the organization as a whole is essential for gaining buy-in. Who organizes and manages a coaching program? Well, you got lots of options. So let's talk about those options. First off, many companies will have an organizational development department or individuals tasked with organizational development. Another option is people or a team working on organizational leadership. Very often, so deciding who's going to organize a program, who's going to manage it, obviously a first step in terms of that. Now, the person that you put in charge is very important. That individual has credibility and has respect within the company. So beyond what their role is in terms of the job, it's how they're viewed by other people. If they're going to be creating buy-in with the upper level management and with everyone in the organization, knowing that they have the credibility and respect to make that happen is essential to the long-term success of your program. So you want an individual that's earned credibility and respect within the company. Next, who's actually going to coach or do the coaching for different individuals? First off, think about, do we have people that are trained and certified? Now, sometimes there are people outside the company that are trained and certified that you're tapping, and sometimes you're looking at having individuals within the organization trained or certified so that they're providing the coaching. You also want to ensure there's a level of competence. Have they developed the skill set that's appropriate and applicable for effective? Then The next question is, do they have a coach? Because when you have individuals within your company, your place of business doing coaching, giving them that opportunity themselves is essential. It's coaching the coaches, if you will. And it's very important for a successful coaching program within an organization. You also want to make sure that that individual has resources. Part of it is resources you're providing as an organization, and part of it is their own ability to go out and tap resources, network, find the resources that will make a difference for them. All of these are essential for having a coach that's going to be effective for your company. The next consideration is who's going to be coached. So when you think about that, very often in a company, it's a matter of identifying high potential employees, and as part of the process for developing them as future leaders of the company, you have coaching for them. Another one is leaders in transition, and we see this at all levels in organizations. Somebody who's moving up into an increasing level of responsibility and leadership, or somebody who is even in a lateral move. It's a huge transition in terms of what's happening for them and within the organization. So when you have leaders in transition, you want to have a coach for that. Another one, at the executive level. Chances are some of you have seen the research on the return on investment, and very often it's done with executives. What it does for an executive to have a coach, it gives them an opportunity to have a sounding board, to really think through some different possibilities, expand their thinking, and have their thinking challenged so they go further and deeper. And what does that do? That supports effective strategizing and decision-making. Management level, well, they're working with people. They're the ones who are hands-in with the day-to-day operations, doing things, getting the work done, and supporting the people that are doing the work. And then, of course, at the staff level, we think about, okay, what's important in a company? We want talent retention. We also want employee engagement. That's a big buzzword these days. And employee productivity. So having coaches at the staff level is going to support that. Now, of course, the level of coaching, the level of expertise expected of a coach will vary based on who's going to be coached. Now, when do you want to do the coaching? Well, of course, for me, I'm going to say all the time. For some of you, it's a little bit different. So let's explore this. First off, you want to think about coaching program. Again, my answer, you'll have to excuse my facetiousness here, or semi-facetiousness. I'm going to say now. Now's the time to start planning. So first off, when you are looking to maximize what's happening within a company or a business, you're doing well, and you really want to maximize that flow and keep it going. Another time people think about having a coaching program is, hey, we've got a real possibility for growth as an organization here. We're just at that tipping point. Alternatively, you may have an organization that is struggling. There's high turnover. There's low productivity, and you want to create a turnaround. These are all times where it makes sense to have a coaching program. When do you want to actually start a coaching program? Well, you've got to think about your process here and when it makes sense to start. First off, after you've created buy-in. Because if I just decide by myself or within the scope of my department, hey, I'm going to have a coaching program here, that's great. If I fail to get the buy-in before I start it, I'm going to lose people all the way through. So I want to have that buy-in at all levels in the organization. Next, I want to make sure I'm prepared. Well, what does that mean? It means I've done my homework. Because, again, if I start a coaching program without the proper preparation, we're going to have a lot of stops and starts and ineffective results, and that's going to taint the perspective of what's happening. How do you get prepared? Well, you develop a plan for what you're doing. you have a process in place for doing it, and you engage the people for doing it. So from there, let's shift in, okay, so I'm going to do this coaching program. Where? So let's cover those areas. First off, where do you want to train somebody? There's a conversation about training within the company and training out. It's really expensive because you have a lot of people you want to get trained. Internal training, unfortunately, some of the studies show if we have just an internal training program, then chances are it's going to be less effective. And there's some research on that. Well, what's the reason for it? It's because an internal program is going to be designed on content that we're familiar with already, and very often it misses addressing core competencies of a coach. So when you look at it, what works for your program, very often a combination makes sense. So in many companies, what they'll do is identify some key people, send them out for external training, and then you actually have an opportunity to buy the training program or buy a learning management system and have that offered within the company. So for example, one thing we'll do is we have people go through a training program. We turn around, you can buy that training program, and they can run it internally to train other people. And then as you trickle that out and are creating, ideally, a coaching culture, you also have that learning management where people can go on independently and learn some of the key pieces of information behind effective coaching, or even that coaching approach in whatever they are doing. So think about the external versus internal programming, and very often it's going to be a blend of the two. Your next consideration, where do you find the coaches? Well, when you have a coaching program, you've got, first off, some coaches inside the company and some coaches outside of the company. So let's talk about finding coaches in view of that. If you're going to look for coaches internally, the most natural places that people go for internal coaches, they start with some of the leaders within the organization. They'll also look at who are the managers and the supervisors. Well, this makes a lot of sense. People in these roles are currently working daily with the individuals that would be coached, and so they have a natural position for doing that. Chances are they're already having one-on-one conversations with the individuals that would be coached as well, so it's very easy to fit that in. Another natural area is within your human resource department, within organizational development, or within organizational leadership. And in some cases, those are all together in one department. So individuals within that department, and interestingly enough, it's often a core competency for the skills they already have to be in that role. And it makes sense that those are great people to do the coaching for your program. Now, if your company is going to find coaches external to the organization, how do you find that? Very often it's by referrals. Some of the executives in the company will talk to and get referrals. Another way is to use sources very much like the Center for Coaching Solutions. So there are businesses out there, a multitude of them, offering coaches where they have coaches that have been trained, they've got a process in place, and that business will match the coach based on the individual who's going to be coached within your program. Another way for finding the external coaches is researching. Some of the most often places, often cited resources for that include doing a Google search on Amazon, or a search on Amazon for somebody by books that they've written that pertain to coaching. And another great place is on LinkedIn. So if you're looking for a coach for somebody, those are good resources for you. Now, where are you going to do the coaching? So options there. Sometimes the coaching is happening face-to-face. So if your organization, the coach and the person being coached are within the same facility, that's an opportunity. Increasingly, companies and businesses are spread out. You've got people located all over the country or all over the globe. And so you're thinking, okay, how are we going to handle the coaching there? Well, the good news is 80% of coaching is done either on the telephone primarily or online. So you have an opportunity through, for example, things like Skype, or if there's an internal software for that within the company, or even doing it on the telephone. These are options for how to handle the coaching. Now, I'm guessing what you really would like to get into is some of the specifics on the how-to. So we've talked a little bit about the basics as far as setting yourself up, who, when, and where. Let's dig in on how to. You decide you're going to establish a coaching program. How do you do it? So first off, how do you create buy-in? How do you do the plan? And then how do you implement? Let's dig into that and go right on through. So if you're going to create buy-in, before you start anywhere, any conversation, get ready. Document the reasons. What are the reasons it makes sense for your company to have a coaching program? So, for example, early on, we talked about, hey, this is an opportunity for maximizing what we're doing as a company. We're on an upward swing, and let's keep it going. It's a possibility for growth. Hey, we've been level for a while. Let's give ourselves the jolt we want and start growing again. Or to create a turnaround. Now, whatever it is, document the reasons it makes sense within your company. Then you want to have the research together. It's a very simple matter to get on the internet and research the return on investment made, and because you'll be able to pick and choose amongst the studies that are most applicable to you. If you want to go into more depth and detail on coaching programs within organizations, I'll share with you a couple of books that give actual, if you will, case studies of that program. Coaching Perspectives and Coaching Perspectives 2. So these are books written by coaches. Each of them includes chapters where coaches are creating coaching programs within their company. And they're great examples, they're great insight, and definitely support your research in terms of, hey, it makes sense to have this coaching program. Now, the next part of buy-in is involving people. So at the upper level of management, once you've documented the reasons the coaching program makes sense for your company, and you pull together that research and provide that, you're involving that upper level of management in making the decision to have the coaching program, and you want to involve them in supporting that. Because when upper management supports the coaching program, everyone in the organization is aware of it, and that's a motivation for them to engage as well. You want to involve your mid-level managers. Very often these are people that are going to get trained as coaches. They're going to be coaching their employees. So involving your mid-level managers is essential in terms of spreading that buy-in throughout the organization. You also want to involve the staff, the people that will be coached, because ultimately when they're given a coach, someone that they're going to work with, you want them to be excited about it and know what the benefits are. Having a coach is like getting a corner office with a window. They've arrived. Let them know it demonstrates that they're valued and that the company is investing in them in developing them as an individual and within the organization. So you're involving people at all levels. The next part of how you're doing it moves into specifically that research. Talk to similar companies. Chances are some of the companies that you work with, your vendors, for example, have coaching programs. So ask about them. If you have a good working relationship with some of your competitors, ask them as well. Do your homework on companies that have coaching programs. It's going to support what you're doing. So you put that research together. The next part of your plan is you're going to outline it specifically. Hey, here's what we found in our research. Here's the return on investment, the statistics behind that, and here's what we want to do with our coaching program. Outline specifically, we plan on having some people trained. Here's how we're going to have them trained. We're going to bring this into the company and spread it and train others and on down the line. You do want to make sure that you're getting feedback. Build this in. So in your plan, you're going to list, okay, we're going to ask for feedback at this point and at this point and at this point. Define your specific action steps in your plan. How are you doing it? What are you doing? So, for example, you decide you're going to have the coaching program. You do your research. You provide this information. You get the buy-in at the upper level of the management. You start letting the staff know, hey, we're creating this program. It's about personal development. It's a fabulous investment in you and your opportunities. You get that buy-in going. You outline your plan. Who's managing your program, making sure they have that credibility and respect. Then you start letting everybody know, here's our process. We're going to find our coaches. Here's where we're finding them. We're going to make sure they've got the training and the competency for that. Here's our process for that training and the competency. Then we're going to start match them up with people. Are you going to start by assigning individuals to be coached, or are you going to let people volunteer and sign up? And then you start that coaching process. And you determine, okay, after 3 months of coaching, we're going to have an evaluation. We're going to have the coaches evaluate the program. We're going to have the people being coached evaluate the program. To determine when you're doing the feedback and who's giving you the feedback. You do want it from both sides. And then specifically letting everyone know, hey, when we start this coaching program, here's how we match the coaches. Here's the agreement between the coach and the person being coached and their process. So it's out there. You do want to implement your plan. So we put a lot of work into it up to this point, developing it, etc. So having those specific action steps is going to make it easier when you come to the actual implementation, having the buy-in from everybody with the implementation. As you go, you're involving your constituency, all levels within the organization, everybody involved in the program, and very often, and this is an interesting perspective, your constituency will involve people outside of the organization, your customers, your vendors, because they will see the benefits and the enhancements as a result of your program. You want to measure your results. So very specifically, when you start a coaching program, what do you want to accomplish? So you're thinking about that on the front end, and that way, as you're going through the program, you have the opportunity to measure it. Examples, and of course this is a big question in many companies. They say, well, sometimes the measurement's qualitative, sometimes it's quantitative. You've got both options. To the qualitative, what are those measures? We decided we want to decrease turnover. We want to increase productivity. We want to increase employee engagement. Those are all possibilities. You start looking at numbers. How much does turnover cost? And if you increase your retention, how much are you saving? Instead of having to replace people, you're keeping those people. That's a dollar line number. That's quantitative. Sales figures are quantitative. Quantitative that you're looking for in terms of skill set, soft skills, engagement, etc. Sometimes you're assigning numbers to those things or rankings to them. In that shift. Once you do measure the results, what's happening with your coaching program, then it's important to adjust. Okay, based on what we've learned with this measurement, how do we want to Now, what's your next step at this point? What I'd like to offer for you is, first off, the Center for Coaching Solutions. The mission statement is to be the resource for coaching results. Whether you are interested in having someone work with you in developing your training program, you'd like to have support in providing training, taking it out, you want external coaches. Whatever it is you're looking for your coaching program, that's a resource for you. Another resource for you is the Center and used internally within your company. The Center for Coaching Certification is there for you. The mission statement there is to enhance your coach training experience with quality, professionalism, and support. If you are interested specifically in a resource for a coach, whether you want a coach to coach you in starting a coaching program at your business, or you'd like to have coaches provide coaching within your business and whatever level, Center for Coaching Solutions has coaches that are trained and certified and available those coaches for you. Something we'd like to offer to you now, simply because you are interested in wanting more information, we'd like to offer a free 30-minute consultation. If you are interested in hiring a coach, you probably are best served talking with Catherine. If you are interested in training for coaches, talk with Catherine. How do you get a hold of us? Catherine is available at 843-329-9300, and her email is catherine@centerforcoachingsolutions.com. There's lots more information on the website. If you're interested in the coach training, my direct telephone number is 843-209-2641. My email address is kathy@centerforcoachingcertification.com. And of course, again, lots of information on the website. Definitely appreciate your time today, your interest in having a coaching program, and what it means for your organization or place of business. We definitely want to be available and helpful to you. Those of you that did schedule that strict 30-minute time block for today's webinar, thanks for being here. We appreciate that. Let us know how we can be helpful. Those of you that have a few extra minutes, if you want to stay around and ask questions, absolutely feel free. You can either type them into the question panel or feel free to raise your hand, and I'm happy to unmute you. In the meantime, I will go ahead. I'll close out the webinar, and then I'll hang around afterwards as long as anyone is still here and has questions. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time and participation today, and definitely look forward to being of service. Thanks.